I'm trying to complete every lifetime wish in The Sims 3. You guys are probably sick of hearing me say this, but as always, I want to start by giving a huge thank you for watching. This episode, we are tackling the Master Romancer lifetime wish. Woohoo in 5 different places with 5 different Sims. The traits this time? Virtuoso, neat, charismatic, loves the outdoors, and grumpy. Good set of traits this time, with some that should actually help us out with the wish for once. Now for the mini challenges. If you didn't catch last episode, I actually have to go get a couple teeth pulled out of my mouth, so I'm pretty sure I won't want to talk through a lot of that, so I started this early so that I would have the voiceover ready so I could edit while I was recovering. So if I didn't pick your mini challenges, sorry, but keep them in mind because I'm sure we're going to have more romance-based lifetime wishes later, so hold on to those. So what are the challenges this time? This sim is a flirt, and someone made the suggestion that I have nicknamed the hit list. They have things that they like, and if their ultimate goal is to taste a bit of everything, then they want to taste it all. Woohoo with one of each of the following: a service sim, a foreign sim, a supernatural sim, a fan of your music or a bandmate, and a wild card because I couldn't think of anything else. Speaking of taste, this sim can be a grump when their standards aren't met, so no romancing or woohoo when they are in a grumpy mood. And nothing makes them more grumpy than being around something dirty, so they have to be clean and tidy before they can even start to think about romance. But when the mood does take them, they are typically not very careful about it, always choosing the risky woohoo option. Very commonly and frequently outside as much as reasonably possible to satiate their love of the outdoors. Not being careful doesn't mean that they're not taking responsibility though, so any oopsie babies must live with them. They are romantic, not a deadbeat parent. So with our mini challenges set, let's get to the wish. This is Lyle Love's song. Growing up in Bridgeport, he used to be a very happy and bubbly guy, living in his fantasy in a committed relationship with his high school sweetheart until she broke his heart. She sought stardom, and she thought Bridgeport was too saturated with celebrities, so she broke up with him and moved on after graduation, leaving Lyle lost emotionally. He found himself frequently shifting into a bad mood, but he would show his ex that she was wrong by channeling that pain into musical talent as he tried to fill the hole in his heart. A quick trip to the grocery store got him settled with food, and since it was a nice spring day, he headed over to the park to have some hot wings and pick some flowers. As the noon hour struck, he headed over to the bar, but since it was pretty dead, he practiced some pickup lines in the mirror, hoping that he might find someone to try them out on before the night was over. Eventually satisfied with his words, he headed back out to the bar and noticed some ladies trying, and failing, mind you, to jam, so he joined them. They were all terrible, of course, but you gotta start somewhere, right? Tiring of shattering his own eardrums with his current lack of ability, Lyle introduced himself to some bar patrons, including this woman named Belisama Stryker, who he seemed to hit it off with as soon as he introduced himself. She was fun, but he did think her teeth were a bit sharp. The next morning was Love Day, and another beautiful spring day, so he made himself some breakfast and headed back over to the park to practice in the tranquility of nature. He stopped to enjoy the festival a bit, introducing himself to some new acquaintances and having some fun on the dance floor. Lyle spent most of the day at the park, but as the sun set, he made his way over to the library to use the computer and set up a dating profile. He also was invited to some random ladies' party, so he headed over, playing some guitar for the party guests, and he was abducted by aliens. The next morning, he was in a bad mood. Probably because he was abducted by aliens, but he didn't really want to talk about that. He slept in after his long night and headed out in the late afternoon, visiting the park to continue his work on his guitar skill. He had to stop and enjoy the beauty of nature when he noticed a small bird. Then this guy came out of nowhere and invaded his space. Lyle did not appreciate that, and no, he didn't care if he was a teenager. He needed to mind his own business. He might have been in a bad mood that day. He absolutely was, in fact, in a bad mood. So he needed to head home before he made someone his enemy and got a night's rest in hopes of feeling better. The next morning, his mood had improved dramatically, so he headed over to the library to check his dating profile for any new matches, and then headed over to the bar for lunch. It ended up being the hot spot for the night, so he tried to get some practice in on his guitar with an audience to cheer him on. But when he noticed Belisama, the beauty with the interesting teeth, back at the bar again, he spent some time getting to know her a bit more. They chatted and he got her a drink. Things were going well. That is, until this musty, foul-smelling old man decided to stink up the air with his stench. Lyle insulted him so hard that apparently he stopped smelling, but he was already too irritated, so he headed home for the day. It was now early summer, so when the festival came to town the next day, Lyle headed over to enjoy the fresh air and the very patriotic decor. He collected some wildflowers, as he liked to do. They tended to sell pretty well, and he even caught some butterflies. As the evening started to set in, Lyle thought that he would take some chances, flexing his charisma, and invited Belly out to the bar. She agreed, and they met up in this back alley apparently, totally not weird. She even sported a very colorful umbrella, but she explained to Lyle that she had very sensitive skin and didn't want to get sunburned. Made sense to him, so they headed over to the local diner to have a bite to eat. She did end up having to go to work though, so she left, but not before solidifying herself as Lyle's good friend first. Of course, he wanted more, but that could come in time. Oh, don't look so mad about it. His potential date having abandoned him, he headed out to the club for a bit and then went home to sell some of those wildflowers and take a nice bubble bath to relax. A quiet night. A meteor shower? Isn't it too early in the playthrough for this? It did present an opportunity though, so Lyle called the fire department to deal with the aftermath. They responded in force, and after the flames were put out, it gave Lyle the chance to introduce himself. He did love a woman in uniform, even if she was angry at him. The firefighter's name was Lucy, and after a brief introduction, he asked if she wanted to hang out. Obviously, his striking figure in his underpants was enough to get her to agree, so he worked his charm. Then he found out she was, a slob. He could deal with a lot of things, especially for love, but the idea of potentially questionable hygiene touching him was not something he could overlook. He didn't outright insult the woman, but there was no way that it would work, so he changed focus to the old man jamming on the sidewalk. He had skill, so Lyle introduced himself and chatted the guy up before floating the idea that they start a band. The old dude was all for it, and they called themselves the Heartbeats, and Lyle had officially started his own band. The unexpected celestial activity might have gotten him out of bed sooner than he intended, so he was dead tired around 3 p.m. and went to bed to at least not fall over. He got up around 7 and ordered some pizza and practiced. If he was going to match his new bandmate in skill, he was going to need to work at it before officially calling it a night and heading to bed. The next day, he made some breakfast, cleaned the apartment, collected some wildflowers, witnessed a random person die, played some guitar, and later that afternoon, he met up with Belly for some dinner. This time, he got a moment to talk to her after dinner. He got to show off his charm by flirting with her, and after a while, he finally had his first romance since his ex. But you know my rule. Wait, what the heck just happened? There we go. Belly had to leave shortly after, but Lyle was ecstatic to finally have another chance at a relationship. He spent some time playing guitar for the people still on the lot, making it to level 5 before he headed home and got some sleep. The next day, he did his daily routine and made sure to do a little planning. He waited until nightfall and invited Belly out to the most secluded and tranquil place he could think of, the graveyard. It perfectly fit her dark, mysterious persona and allowed him to enjoy the outdoors. Under the clear night sky, they watched the stars, and his plan came together as he showed her the secluded romantic tent that he tucked away. Lyle threw himself into his passions and tossed all caution to the wind. What a wonderful night indeed. Returning home in the early morning, Lyle spent the next day mostly working on his guitar. He wanted to get better and even invited his bandmate over for a little practice. He was still in such a good mood and he didn't want to slow down his music practice with cleaning, so he hired a maid for the day. Eventually he got distracted, chatting her up, and he may have been a little swooned from his night with Belly. He couldn't pass on an opportunity to practice for his next serious relationship. Who knows? Maybe the more he explored, the better he would feel. So... At least that's what he thought, until he woke up feeling aggravated all over again. He decided to hide inside for most of the day, reflecting and playing guitar. He eventually made his way to the bar for the night and stumbled into an opportunity to show off his skills when he joined a woman named Sonia on stage for a jam session. She was pretty good, and they were drawing a crowd, until this guy died. Why does this keep happening around you, Lyle? He did get the chance to talk to Sonia and eventually asked her to join the Heartbeats. That is, he would have if this lady didn't also decide to just die. Why does this keep happening around you, Lyle? Sonia did accept, and he added another member to the band before playing some more that night. And a meteor shower? Another one? What the heck is going on? I have no idea where these meteors go, by the way. They were not on the lot, and the ground just looked scorched, so as long as the house didn't burn, I suppose it's fine. Lyle was still in a grumpy mood the next morning, so he spent another day in solitude, doing chores around the house and trying to cheer himself up by practicing guitar in the park, before eating dinner at his favorite bar and doing a bit of retail therapy by buying himself a desk and a laptop. And for the third day in a row, Lyle was still in a bad mood. He got himself to check on his dating profile messages, and I eventually figured out that those meteors were spawning in this inaccessible area in the apartment building. Weird. I moved them into a place where Lyle could actually collect them, and after analyzing them, he made a decent chunk of cash from selling them. Later that night, Lyle called up his band and hit the bar to perform in hopes of getting an official gig. They didn't sound too bad. All that practice was working out. He was finally starting to feel better after that. Apparently all he needed was a little music therapy. After getting himself going for the day, Lyle raked up some leaves and got drenched in the rainstorm before he could smell himself and retreated indoors to shower. Since the rain was keeping him inside, he thought he would ask Belly over, but she declined. He figured he would try again tomorrow, but instead he got the shock of his life when at 6 a.m. he got the message on his phone from Belly. Apparently, she was pregnant this whole time and just gave birth to his child, a baby boy named Charles. Fatherhood. It wasn't something that Lyle was planning to do, but it was here now and he had to deal with it. He invited Belly over to discuss what they would do. As they were both aware, Belly was married, and she shared another secret with Lyle that she was also a vampire. Her husband wouldn't appreciate a spawn outside of his own, so it was best that he cared for Charles. Lyle agreed, not planning to leave his son to the whims of a scorned vampire, and got his house ready for his new responsibility. He also couldn't see himself saying no to Belly. She had a pull on him that he just couldn't get around, even if he knew she had other obligations. She stayed the night. She hung around the apartment and was actually a huge help with caring for Charles. Mostly. She did give him a bath in a filthy sink that Lyle hadn't gotten to clean yet, which horrified him, but she said something about vampire genes and having a stronger immune system. Still gross though. No way he was gonna let her do that again. They played house for a bit over the next few days. Belly stayed over a few times, coming to a feast party and even sticking around when Lyle was in one of his moods. Before he knew it, it was Charles's birthday. He aged up into a toddler, and Lyle had to start thinking about how he was going to raise a vampiric child. It was around this time that I also managed to get enough lifetime happiness points to buy the Above Reapproach reward. This should make it a lot easier to have multiple relationships at once without everyone calling Lyle a cheater, though let's be real, just about everyone he is hooking up with is married already, so basically be the pot calling the kettle black, but whatever. He took to toddler dad quickly, just like he did before, but after a few days of just straight baby care, he needed a break. Travel. It seemed like the perfect option. New sights, new people, new experiences. Lyle headed over to some popular tourist spots, visiting the Nectary and introducing himself to some locals. He met a woman, Amy... Oh my god, I don't think I can say that. Amy...
Lefebvre.
Amy, and they became quick friends. She was married, but if his relationship with Belly taught him anything, that didn't really matter, at least not to him. Casual worked, but he didn't want to be too forward too quickly, so he settled for friends. For now. He spent some time enjoying himself by making his first bottle of nectar, enjoyed some food at the cafe, and exploring some ruined sites for some lucrative items that he could sell. On his last day, though, he really wanted to solidify his trip in his memory. What better way to do that than connecting with someone? He invited Amy out to meet him, and this time, he was very forward with what he wanted. Despite her marital status, she too was open to a bit of fun. You all know my rule, though. There we go. Lyle thought it would be poetic to return to the place they met to say a final goodbye, so they returned to the Nectary. There weren't many places for privacy, but there was some hay out back. A roll in the hay never hurt anyone. Returning back to Bridgeport, Lyle got back to his routine. Unfortunately, the thought of getting back to the grind after such a nice vacation put him in a rough mood. It was winter though, and Lyle got out to enjoy some of the snow with little Charles, going to the park and playing on the playground before spotting someone who caught his eye. A woman named Vanessa, with a peculiar choice of outerwear, was also out enjoying the snow. They hit it off well and literally started flirting without my direction, but Lyle knew that he would probably mess things up if he tried any moves now, so he steered the conversation back to casual chatter. Figuring out that Vanessa was in the music career, a fellow music lover, no wonder they worked well together. After talking for a bit, Lyle let his inner child out and built an igloo, inviting Vanessa to help. Then he made some snow angels and invited his bandmates out to play a bit in hopes of getting noticed. Bronson showed up, but Sonia was busy. She just had a baby with her husband, some dude named Clydesdale or something like that, so it was just the two of them until his fussy toddler sent him home. He was in a better mood the next day, so he went back to the park and thought he would invite Vanessa. He liked talking to her, and he was a bit disappointed that his attitude made him distant. He wanted to ask her if she would join their band, since she was already in the music career anyway. She didn't appear to have an instrument though. Since I couldn't ask her to join the jam session, Lyle took it upon himself to gift her a keyboard since they were lacking one in the band, and she loved it. Eventually, Vanessa got tired, so she ended up heading home, but later that night, Lyle called everyone to the bar for a live show. With the entire band present, they put on the best show they could, looking for any lifeline to performing a real gig. Didn't appear to come though, so they just have to keep trying. The next day, Lyle thought he should meet up with Vanessa to strategize. They mostly ended up just hanging out, throwing some darts and chatting at the local bar. With that in mind, it shouldn't be surprising when their casual band strategy outing became a bit more romantic. As a fellow music lover, Lyle thought that they should play together. They headed to the park for a jam session, getting in some good practice before they bonded in the chilled air and drifting snow. Something about this time of year put Lyle in a mood, so he let it, serenading Vanessa with a sweet symphony and putting the igloo that they built to use. After such an intense date, Lyle couldn't really get Vanessa off his mind. Itching for a distraction, he decorated for Snowflake Day, preparing the apartment with as many festive decorations as he could. He even managed to teach little Charles to walk. Belly came over to check in with them, and he couldn't help himself from catching her under the mistletoe. Then they slow danced in the hallway, and he played her some music just to see her smile. Man, she had a way of captivating him. She really did. The next day was finally Snowflake Day, and it was doubly exciting because it was also Lyle's birthday. He planned a holiday party that would double as a birthday celebration and invited everyone that he could think of to attend. He made sure the apartment was neat and tidy before practicing a bit of guitar as he waited for his guests. Eventually, everyone arrived, and he aged up amid some of his closest friends and friends with benefits into adulthood. He entertained his guests, and eventually, most people left, including Belly, leaving Lyle free to ask Vanessa if she wanted to hang around. Might as well, right? He had been thinking of her quite a bit lately, and it was his birthday, and he really didn't want to spend it alone. Vanessa slept over, and Lyle had a lot to prepare for the next day because it was Charles's birthday. The apartment was already a mess after his Snowflake Day party though, so he didn't really want to throw another party so soon. He spent most of the day cleaning, and after Vanessa left for work, Lyle invited Belly over. Since it was Charles's birthday, it seemed like something that she should be there for. As soon as she walked in though, Lyle felt himself melt. She always had that effect on him. He of course played her some music, but she needed to have a difficult discussion with him. Raising a vampire wouldn't be easy, and since Charles was getting older, she wanted to send him somewhere safer, but Lyle pleaded. There was a way that he could be prepared though. He had to be a vampire. He didn't really know what he got himself into, but he knew he wanted to keep his son with him at all costs. And after he aged up with the insane trait, he was probably going to need any help his future powers could give. Charles aging up did give Lyle a bit more freedom to leave the house more frequently. He had gained a few celebrity levels and was recently disgraced, so after cleaning up the apartment and checking that Charles would be okay, he headed out to City Hall to sue for slander. Charles, who also got the loves the outdoors trait like his dad by the way, went out to do some fishing. It was quiet for a while after that, but while Lyle was out enjoying some time at the bar and jamming with his band, his transformation completed, and he was now an undead creature of the night. It was like a new life, and yet he no longer had life. A strange feeling for him to contemplate, especially as he tried to figure out why the heck his band had not gotten any gigs yet. Lyle needed to adapt to his new existence, but nothing could ever be that easy. As I casually looked through his relationships, trying to make a decision about where his life would go from here, I realized something. Amy, his fling from France, had been keeping a secret that I hadn't noticed until now. A daughter, Brittany. A child he had never known that he had, and one whose life he had missed completely up until now. That couldn't be, and he needed to correct this wrong or he could never feel right. He couldn't go immediately though, as he was still an unblooded vampire, as Belly called him. He spent the next couple of days building his strength, going to the gym to work out, mostly for a celebrity opportunity, but the athletic boost could only help. Making time to work with Charles as he started to navigate school and life among mortals, and finally finding his way into the night and securing his first real taste of vampiric unlife. He was ready now, prepared to make the journey back to France, and he wouldn't return without his daughter. He made his way to Amy's home, and Brittany was apparently so shocked to see him, she was stuck on the front porch. Seriously, I had given her a makeover and it didn't take, and then I tried to reset her and she duplicated? But the new one had the makeover. Then I deleted the old one and she just vamped out of existence. Yeah, we are all aware that odd things can happen in this game, right? I eventually got it to work and she was functioning again, so Lyle took the chance to get to know her. Lyle explained that he was her real father and he wanted her to come back with him. He understood that he had missed out on a lot of her life, but he wanted to make up for that now, and her family and friends didn't seem to have a big connection with her. Lyle talked with Amy, telling her what he wanted to do, and she was in agreement, but her husband was not. Shocked that his wife was admitting that Brittany was not his, Lyle told it to him straight. He promised Amy that he would take care of their daughter and he wouldn't interfere with her family any longer. But neither could help themselves in spending one final moment together. The two of them returned home to Bridgeport, and Lyle paid to expand the apartment so Brittany could have her room. Lyle spent some time as a family man, so as soon as he had the chance, he took the kids out to the park and they spent some time as a family. He had been a bit hesitant to really dive too deep into his vampiric powers. He didn't want to frighten his human daughter, but he was starting to feel sluggish and hungry. He needed someone to feed from, someone who might trust him enough, even if they knew what he was, so he called up Vanessa. He explained to her his situation, telling her about his true self, hoping that she would understand, and his heart shattered when she rejected him. He thought he could trust her, but he quickly realized that he didn't have to. With the flick of his wrists, she would just do whatever he needed. She wouldn't even remember, just an itchy little bug bite. His hunger satiated, the weekend came with another milestone, as it was Charles's birthday. He aged up, gaining the photographer's eye trait after a random roll. Everyone had some cake, and Lyle spent some money to get a car for easier travel. At this point, he felt like he had a good grasp on his reality. His children were thriving, his band was there, I guess. I don't know why they never get any gigs, but it existed, I suppose. He had liaisons with the captivating vampire who was the mother of his child, and an entertaining repeated connection with his bandmate. There were a few flings as well, a maid, a French beauty who also gave him a daughter. Yes, his ventures in love had brought him far, but there was one more thing he wanted to experience. On a quiet night, while his kids were sleeping, Lyle headed to the graveyard. He had decided that he wanted to taste the one thing he could no longer have naturally himself, death. He hung around the graveyard and waited for a chance. Any moment, he could get to see an echo of a life lost. Unfortunately, nothing seemed to manifest on this night, so he returned home and made a plan to return as often as he could until he finally got his chance. The next few days, Lyle and his family lived quietly. Eventually, it was little Brittany's birthday, but the silent bookworm that she is, she didn't want a big party on a school night, so they stayed in and celebrated together until Lyle was able to sneak out in the dark of night and return to the graveyard to try to fulfill his yearning for a taste of a life once past. Again, the night passed with no luck. He did invest in some preparation though. If he was going to woo the dead, then he had to remind them of the pleasures of life. So he paid from his own pocket to install a hot tub in the graveyard gazebo. Because nothing says celebrating your former life like a good soak in a hot tub. Nothing major really happened for a while. The family went about their lives with Charles and Brittany becoming really close. Lyle also made sure to find the time to spend with them through the daylight hours, even managing to teach Charles to drive. But at night, he would return to the graveyard, serenading the stones themselves in hopes of getting a lucky chance at a ghastly beauty. And finally, his patience paid off, and from beyond, a blue shimmer of light emerged. Jacqueline Chamberlain. Lyle quickly introduced himself to the translucent figure, dripping with what he assumed to be the aftermath of her untimely demise. He explained to her his fascination with her form of undeath, much different than his own, and they immediately bonded over their shared charismatic ability. So it didn't take long for Lyle to turn up the charm. She explained how she had drowned and was not the biggest fan of water any longer, so when Lyle invited her to relax with him in the hot tub, she was hesitant. He promised that he would be by her side though, and of course he would. He had no plans of leaving. As the sun rose, she disappeared, a fleeting memory in Lyle's mind, and a confusing reminder for my own. By my count, this was the 5th sim that Lyle woohooed, and it should have been the 5th location, so I was very much expecting the challenge to be over here. I even checked Inros's woohoo skill, which someone very nicely tipped me off to having a handy feature that can show you where your sims have woohooed and with who. No, I'm in no way expecting his repeated woohoo with the same sims like Belly, Vanessa, and Amy to count, which is why I was so freely woohooing with them whenever I felt like it. But from what it showed, he did in fact woohoo with 5 different sims in 7 locations. A shower, a haystack, a bed, a tent, an elevator, a hot tub, and an igloo. So I was very confused. After doing some research, I'm pretty sure that this might have something to do with traveling from the homeworld and resetting the counter. But like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I didn't have all the time in the world to record this, and let's be real, I didn't want to do this whole thing from scratch again, but I wanted the sweet satisfaction of seeing that wish pop. So let's agree, narratively, that we have completed the lifetime wish here, but for the sake of saying that I did it, I'm about to speedrun this. First things first, I went into Edit Town and placed some more woohoo capable spots in some community lots. I wanted a variety because I didn't know if this would exactly fix my issue. Lyle then started calling up and hooking up with all the vampire girlies in town. He hooked up with this woman who is basically his son's grandmother, but we won't talk about that in a wardrobe at the library. He hooked up with the vampiric lady he met on the dating app in a photo booth at the art gallery. He hooked up with another vampire friend of his in the military base and got caught. And finally, after hooking up with a vamp named Elvira in the movie theater, the wish finally fulfilled and Lyle completed his lifetime wish again. If you made it this far, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I apologize that the ending was a bit confusing, but imagine my surprise when it didn't work. This wish itself is actually not too hard to do. I'm still not 100% sure how it registers different locations and if it was just the place itself or the lot too. Not sure, but I'm certain that traveling probably did reset something because he basically had to woohoo with 5 more sims again for it to count, and I know at least some of what he did before should have counted. Anyways, let's take a look at the mini challenges and see how we did. Did we complete our hit list of sim conquests of a service sim, a foreign sim, a supernatural sim, a fan of your music or a bandmate, and a wild card? Yes. Yes, we did. Did we avoid romance while being in dirty surroundings or in a grumpy mood? Yeah. Yes, we did. Did we? Tried to woohoo outdoors as often as within reason and chose the risky woohoo option, agreeing to take care of any children that came from our encounters? I would say we did. The service sim was an exception to risky woohoo though, because the game would literally not allow me to do it because the household was too full, but I definitely did it for everyone else, so I don't know, hit or miss on that one. So with that, let me know if I should revoke any bragging rights for completing any of the mini challenges. But I want to say again, thank you all so much for watching, and if you like this video, then please give it a like or don't, that is up to you. But I do hope that you'll come back and join me for more lifetime wishes here on the channel. Thanks all. Bye-bye. Let's pick some traits. But first things first, we gotta pick the next lifetime wish, so let's see what we get. Become a superstar athlete. Reach level 9 of the athletic career. Only level 9? Why did I think there were 10 levels to every career? Are there not normally? Okay, I guess we'll figure that out. Now the traits. Last episode, I mentioned that I kind of tweaked the way I do this, and I'm going to stick to that now. Basically, any trait that Lyle had, the sim we just saw, will not be possible on the next sim in any way, and in fact, all the traits that previous sims have had are removed from the wheels, and at the end, we'll roll a wheel with all of those removed traits to put one back into rotation next time. It's a way to try to get a bigger variety, and for now, it's working. We'll tweak it if it runs into any hiccups, so let's roll. Mental, physical, social, lifestyle, roll for another category, social again. Okay, so our next sim is going to aim to be a superstar athlete, and they're going to be nurturing, lucky, snob, animal lover, supernatural skeptic. I feel like none of those really help or hurt necessarily for anything that we might have to do for that, so okay, I guess. Now let's go ahead and give the next wheel a roll. Now let's roll the wheel of all the previous traits. So like I mentioned, these are all of the previous traits that sims that we've already had videos on have had in the past, minus Lyle's. His will go on the next episode. But let's roll to put one back into rotation. Eccentric. Alright, so that means that our next sim has the potential to maybe, possibly, could be eccentric again. With that, that's all I have for this video, and thank you guys again for watching. Catch you next time.